Nicole Corey and Jennifer Claxton are our guests tonight. They are parents of students in Metro Nashville Public Schools and part of a kind of a grassroots group, a coalition called Let Nashville Parents Choose, as we continue to kind of inch toward getting students back into class during this age of COVID. And they are with us tonight via, is it Zoom, Taylor? Are we doing Zoom? It is Zoom tonight. All right, but thanks for taking an hour of your time, ladies. I appreciate it. And 737-plus, the phone number if you'd like to call in. I mentioned teachers before we went to break, ladies. Obviously, there are a lot of teachers out there. There's two facets to this. Some of them, they are concerned. They don't want to get sick. They want to go back, but they want to go back safely. And there's a question of personal protective equipment for teachers, and how do we separate kids, and masks on, masks off, all of that. And also teachers who now are being forced to teach virtually, who may not have that experience. I have a family member, a cousin of mine, who switched several years ago from in-class teaching to virtual teaching, and it takes specific training. There's virtual classes that she does, and obviously teachers who may not have the experience doing that, it's definitely a transition for them. So let's dive into that. What do you say to those teachers who are very concerned about going back into class?
It's a valid concern, and I think, we need to look to our experts in the field that, we've got essential workers that have been treating COVID patients for 6 months that have best practices in place. I've talked to several of my physician clients, and, there are two things that they drive home is that, if you temperature check and you mask up and you distance when you can, but having that mask is very important. They've managed to, keep the hospitals from having massive outbreaks. So there have been people that are actually treating COVID patients on a daily basis that we can learn from to keep our teachers safe. A lot of the teachers that my kids have, they want to go back. So I've not been around the teachers that don't, but it is a valid concern, and we want to protect those teachers. For sure.
Mm-hmm. Nicole?
Yes, I've been working, directly with COVID patients since April, and I wear my mask and my gloves every day, and I've been protected. So I definitely think it can be done. And just like Jennifer was saying, I think we look to the experts in epidemiology and infectious disease, and we, do good hand washing. From my knowledge, we had been supplied like $1.5 million in PPE, even in the summer. So, I was also blindsided that we weren't going back, because it had seemed like we had been preparing for it. However, I'm now speaking with a lot of MNPS employees that are saying that they have not seen any signs of any of this, which is very concerning.
Okay, let's go to the phones. Real quick, let me take a phone call. Granger is on line one. Hi, Granger, welcome.
Hey, thank you for having this show tonight.
Sure.
Listen, I guess my question is, what are the long-term health effects for children of having COVID? I think that's something I'd like you to answer if you get a chance in a minute, but I know there's some viruses like polio where you may have a very mild case, and then, as in my case, in my mid-30s, I found out I had polio issues. And I'm all for opening the community when it's safe, but I think we're taking a great risk with the long-term welfare of our children, given some of the studies like they did. I think it was a study of healthy football players in college who were asymptomatic and found out that 15% had inflamed heart tissue.
Right.
So if you could address how you plan to make these children safe.
Sure. All right. He brings up some valid points. I should point out, I was talking to someone just the other day about, it's going to be several years before we can really look back and have all the data and all the information and understand both medically, socially, how we responded and the implications. It seems like every other day there's a new study coming out with these rare, interesting kind of side effects or things that have stemmed from COVID. Is it COVID? Is it not? Some of it, I just don't know how definitive the science is at this point, ladies.
I think my first, it was an excellent question, and it's a concern for many. And I think, for those that are very concerned about their children and their health, and they do not want to take the risk. I mean, that's why we are saying we want a choice. We don't want to force anyone back into the school system that, that do not want to be there, that are scared to be there. We understand. But I think the first point I would make is these children are, they're not hiding in a room all day. They have not, been in a room isolated since March. If they have, we have a lot of issues. These children are still allowed to go to swimming pools, go to Nashville shores, go to the sound waves. And so it's not like they're not having exposure in their everyday life right now. And I think in a lot of ways, kids will be safer in schools. They're going to have to wear a mask. Hygiene is going to be, very, it's going to be very important to do, and schools are going to take that seriously. I believe that. And so, these kids are at risk in everyday life because this virus is here, and there's only so much you can do to, not be exposed at all. And then, there are the multi-inflammatory syndrome in children. They are looking into that. And, we won't know all of the effects of this for many years. And so I appreciate all the doctors out there that are studying this and trying to make it as safe as possible for everyone. But there are some things we won't know. But it's my belief that some of the things these kids are suffering from not being in school are far worse than what could potentially happen to them with COVID.
Good point. All right, let's go to another phone call, and it is Megan on line 2. Hi, Megan.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. What's on your mind?
Okay, so I have, I don't want to say I have severe asthma. I do have asthma. Both of my children have asthma. My son was born, and he actually ended up having a collapsed lung, so his lung is not the best. My parents both work in the school system. My mom is a breast cancer survivor twice. She also is diabetic, but she's over the whole OT department for Metro. So my kids will not be going back just for the sake of just health conditions. I was a full-time hair and makeup artist, and I have not been able to work just due to it. It's just not being safe for me and my family, especially with all of us having the asthma that we have.
Right.
And I just feel like it is so rushed. There are so many kids that I know that are homeschool kids that actually have an amazing education, well beyond people that have gone to Metro schools. So to say that kids are missing out and things like that, it just seems very irrational, doesn't seem to make sense. And the thing that I see a lot when people compare it to the flu, well, when we are well beyond the point now where there's medicine, there's things that we know the flu. We don't know COVID as well as we need to. And so to just put these kids back in school, to put the teachers at risk just because we want to get back to life seems extremely hasty, extremely irrational, and it puts even my mother at risk, who has to be at the schools because she's over the whole department. So it
Megan,
just can seem kind of selfish.
Let me ask you this. Obviously, if you have children with underlying conditions or you have an underlying condition, the point of this is you have the choice to keep your kids home. But what about those parents? What they're talking about is just having a choice. If they feel like their kids are healthy and they want to go back, and there are some teachers who want to go back, do you think that just having the choice is okay, or you still think we need to learn more?
I mean, I think that it's great that we do have the choice. The issue that I have, though, sometimes is we see the numbers go down. We see the flattening of the curve. You know, I want to get back to work. My whole business has been completely shut down. I've had to get on food stamps. Like, this is not... This has just been a very hard hit for my family. And what I noticed is, okay, the numbers are going down, the flattening of the curve, and then everybody's like, okay, rush in, let's go back downtown, let's go to bars, let's go open pools, and then we're going to see that peak again. Especially, and I guess for the medical professionals, how do you determine when the flu season comes, what's going to be the difference? Is it flu? Is it COVID? What happens if you get both? Because we don't really know everything that we need to know about it, is it really the safest thing to have anybody in the schools right now until we can really just have something that can be a preventative or be something to really just help cure it, even if it's just the knowledge of understanding it a little bit more. It just doesn't seem to make sense to just unleash everything when we don't really understand this 100%. Because like you said, one day there's one report, the next day it's another thing, and one day you can get it from this. I said, you know, so it's just, can we just figure out what the heck we're dealing with before we just open things back up is kind of my concern.
Megan, great call and great points. We appreciate you chiming in. And let's go to Jennifer. What's your response to that?
You know, again, I think it just goes back to having the choice, and she fortunately does have the choice to keep her kids home, which I think is a smart one for her and her family. And it is tough for everybody. I'm thankful that I'm still able to work. But the point, you know, that I would say is that things have been opened up. They've been opened up since May. You know, Williamson County has been in school for 6 weeks now, pre-K through 2. The rest of the elementary, middle, and high has been in for several weeks as well. And so we don't have to recreate the wheel. We can look to them for their best practices. But the point is, everything is opened up. Everything else around us is, and the restrictions are getting looser by the day in Metro, but we're still at home without the choice. And, you know, I think the other big blow to us when they pushed it back after fall break, potentially, is that's the start of the flu season. Why not get us in now before the flu hits? And we're now dealing with COVID and flu mid to end October. I think best case scenario for my daughter to go back was October 20th and my son October 27th. I mean, that's flu season. Yeah. So, you know, if we're that concerned, then we need to shut the bars down. We need to shut the exercise. I mean, I do yoga and cycle bar 2 to 3 times a week. I've been doing that since May. And knock on wood, I'm either very lucky or I've had it and didn't know it. But you know, I think to that point, everything else is open. So why not the schools?
All right, we're going to just pause right there, take another break. And Nicole, if you have some thoughts, we'll get to you right after this. Stay with us.